Okay, so this video is about connecting 3 routers to one modem and one ISP, or ISP is Internet Service Provider. So basically, I have a diagram right here of that. So this is, let's say, your cable modem or your DSL modem, and this modem allows you to connect to the internet, and you also have to connect a router to the modem so that the computers in your network can connect to the router and connect to the modem, and you can go to your ISP and connect to the internet. So basically that's how it works. So when you connect your main modem to your main router to your modem, there's something called a WAN port. I think that's like a blue that's highlighted by the blue thing. It's blue, and you just connect that with a regular regular network cable to your modem, and you also have LAN ports on your main modem, and basically this is what your computers connect to. But in this case, I want to connect the routers to the LAN port on the main router. So on router 1, from router 2, you're gonna connect a network cable in the WAN port on your router 2 to the LAN port on your main router, and from router 3, which is network 2, you're going to connect the WAN port from a network cable from your WAN port to your LAN port on your main router. So that's how it's going to connect. And as you can see, this is the IP address of the first router, which is 192.168.1.1. That's the IP address, and the IP address for router 2 will be, it's not going to be 1, it's going to be 2. So it's going to be 192.168.2.1, and the third one is going to be 192.168.3.1. So this is what you have, an IP address, 192.168.1x.xx. So 192.168.xxx is the network. It's basically the network ID, and 192.168.xxx.xxx is the device ID. So that would be the computer's ID, device ID. So for this computer, I'm going to go to CMD, and I'll show you. I'm going to type in IP config /all. So my IP address for this computer is 192.168.1.173. 173 would be the device ID for this computer that I'm using, and this is a MAC address for the network card that I have for this computer. So that's what it is. So you have the machine address and you have the network ID. So what we want to do is we want to change the network ID here. That's why I put 2 in here, and that's why I put 3 in here. So if you want to find the IP address, like I said, you just go here and type in IP config -all, and you can find it. So what you have to do is you need to configure each of these routers to get a different IP address. So for my main router, my IP address is 192.168.1.1. So this could also be 192.168.0.1. That could also be the case. Then if it was 0, then I would change this to 1, and I would change this to 2, And if I wanted to add a fourth router, I would change that. If it was 2, then it'd be 3. So in this configuration, if I wanted 4 routers, this would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's how I would set it up. But I'm only setting up 2 networks with 3 routers. So that's what I'm doing. So what you have to do is first you need to go into before you do that, you should go into DHCP settings in your router and go to Address Reservations and get the MAC address for each router and the IP address, and set it in the address reservation so there will be no IP conflicts. So that's what you should do. So before you do that, let's get the IP addresses first. So what we have to do first is you need to connect your computer, the LAN port on your computer, to the LAN port on your router. So in this case, router 2. And let's say the MAC address was 11cc.ddee.ff, and the IP address on this router, let's say, was 192.168.1.1 by default. Then we would have to change it. So the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, and that would be probably the same for the other one as well. So we would go into the LAN setting on the router, which I will show you shortly. Okay, this is a LAN setting on my router. You see right here, every router is different. So this is the LAN setting, and this is the IP address. It's 192.168.1.1. I would change that to 192.168.2.1, and the subnet mask is the same, of course, but that would not change. So I would do that with this thing. I would change it from this to that, and then save the settings, and the subnet mask is the same. Save it, and that's good enough for the LAN IP address change for router 2 for network 1. So the next thing is router 3. So that would be network 2. And make sure you write down the MAC addresses for each of the modems, because we're going to have to add that in to the address reservations for the main router. So there will be no IP conflicts. So you have to do that. So make sure you have a pen and paper ready and write stuff down. You know what the IP address of the routers is. You would write this down. You would write down the MAC address. The IP address is just 192.168.2.1. You would change it to that. The subnet mask, you would write that down too, but it's 255.255.255.0. So next we'll go to router 3, and we would have to go into the router. You would look up what the IP address is. So I would disconnect this from my computer and connect the LAN cable to router 3's LAN port, and I would connect to the router to configure it, of course. So I would log in here. You would refer to your manual, and a lot of times the IP address is 192.168.0.1, or it could be 192.168.1.1, and then you would log in, and usually the default password would be admin, and the username would also be admin, but they're all different. So you would have to look that up on your manual, or if you don't have the manual, then you would have to go to Google and search the model that you have and get the manual to get the default username and address. So let's move on. So let's say the MAC address was this, the IP address was this by default, the subnet mask is this, and I would have to change it to this. The MAC address I don't have to change. I only have to change the IP address to to 192.168.2.1, and the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. And I would save this basically, and I would write down the MAC address and the IP address as well. And now you have to go back to the router and configure the WAN IP address for each of the routers. So by default, this would be set at dynamic IP or something. So when you just plug in the modem to your cable modem or DSL, it just works. So you don't have to change anything. But if you want to set it to static, it's going to be IP is 0.0.0.0. It's all going to be 0 like that. 0.0.0.0. And we would have to go in there and change everything for the WAN IP address or addresses. So for router 2, it's 192.168.1.2. So that would correspond to a LAN IP address on your main modem. That's what it's connecting to. So it's it would be 192.168.1.2, and that would be a LAN IP address on your main modem. So it would see it as a device on your main modem, like how it would see this computer, which is a device on my main router with the IP address of 192.168.1.173. So that's how it is. So, but it would see this as a device on it, on this modem. And after you change it to that, I would change the IP address to 192.168.1.2, and the subnet mask would be 255.255.255.0. The default gateway has to be the same as the router, because the default gateway is used to connect to the modem, which connects to the internet, your ISP. So that would be 192.168.1.1, the same for your router 1. And the DNS is, I just picked that's default gateway is 192.168.1.1. Primary DNS could be the same as the default gateway, which is 192.168.1.1 for this router here. And the second DNS, I just picked Google's DNS, which is 8.8.4.4. So that's Google's DNS, or it could be whatever, or 8.8.8.8. It could be that as well. So I would change this. So I would, after I connect this to the computer, so you do the same thing by configuring each one with your computer. You connect it from your computer's LAN port to your router's LAN port, and you would configure that. And this one also, you would do the same thing. And you would have this for the WAN part. And this IP address, I would select 192.168.1.3. What was formerly 0 would be that. And the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, and the default gateway is the same as this, which is used to connect to the internet, 192.168.1, which is right here, the default gateway. The primary DNS could be the same as the gateway, which is 192.168.1.1, and the second DNS will be Google's DNS, which I will select 8.8.8.8.4.4, and that's how it would be set up. And then the final touch you have to do is you need to connect from your WAN port on your router 2 to the LAN port on your first router. And for router 3, you would do the same. The WAN port, which is a blue one right here, and would connect to a LAN port on your router 1. Or conversely, if you have a network switch, you could connect the network switch to one of the LAN ports on your first router, and you have the switch, then you connect it to one of the ports on the switches from your WAN port to the switch, and you could do the same thing for the other one, which would definitely which you could increase the number of ports. So then conversely, for these two routers, you could add switches here too to each of the LAN ports, and you could expand the number of devices for the LAN port, and you could do that basically. And in this example, I'm just imagining that these routers do not have Wi-Fi on it, so they're just regular routers, and you're just connecting it. So if you had Wi-Fi, then it's a little bit more different. So I will probably make that in the future. So if you have Wi-Fi, then you do have to change the bandwidth for the Wi-Fi routers, or you're going to have some problems. You're going to have to change the channels for each of the frequencies. It could be, the frequency could be 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz. So for 2.4 gigahertz, definitely has longer range, because 2.4 gigahertz frequency has longer wavelengths than 5 gigahertz. Because 5 gigahertz has higher frequency, it has less wavelength, so therefore it has less range. So you would have to change the bands for it. So it could be 2.4.1 gigahertz or something, or you would have to make all that different for each Wi-Fi router basically. But I'm not going to cover that in this video. I'm just showing you how to basically connect 3 routers to 2 networks on your computer. So basically, this router can see what's on this router can see what's on that router. However, router 2 cannot see what's going on in router 3, and router 3 network can't see router 2. So that's the thing about it. So they can't see, these two cannot see each other, but they can both see this router 1, which uses the same gateway, which connects to the modem and able to connect to the internet. So you have 2 separate networks using one internet service provider. So that's what this video is about. But anyways, thanks for watching. By Ace 1000KS 19